Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I see a lot of people are still logging on, so we'll give folks just another minute or two, and then we'll jump into some housekeeping. All right, well, it's 1 minute past, so we'll kick things off. I'll cover a few housekeeping items first. That way, if people are still logging in, that's fine. They won't miss any of the good stuff. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Caitlin Frank. I'm the marketing director here at CrossFuse. And today we're going to talk about ServiceNow Rome and what managers specifically need to know. So we're going to try to not get too in the weeds with stuff, but really keep that higher level conversation this morning. First of all, everybody always asks, yes, this webinar will be recorded. We'll send out the recording to everybody who has registered, whether you're here live or not. We'll send that out a few hours after we conclude today. So watch your email for that. We will have a few minutes for Q&A at the end, but anytime throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions into the Q&A, not the chat. Our panelists will be watching the chat a little bit when they can, but to really help us manage that Q&A session, please make sure you put questions in the Q&A portion. With that, feel free to engage with the chat. That is very public. Everybody should be able to see your comments there. So we'd love to have interaction with our audience. And like I said, our panelists will try to engage with you there whenever they can. With that, we'll run through some introductions real quick. So first of all, I'm very excited to have Allison Holt with us here today. She is a managing consultant here at CrossFuse with over 11 years of experience working on the Now platform. She's one of our ServiceNow certified master architects. And she's specially trained in solving these complex business challenges with ServiceNow. Really skilled in designing elegant and simple solutions on the Now platform and presenting technical architecture solutions to the C-suite, which is one of the main reasons why we've asked her to join us today. We also have Justin Meadows. Justin is one of our solution consultants at CrossFuse. He has over 4 years of experience working with the ServiceNow platform and over 7 years experience in IT service management. His day-to-day role requires listening to customers' business goals and challenges and mapping them to application solutions within ServiceNow. His demonstrations of the Now platform are famous in the ecosystem for including process mapping, proof of concepts, requirements-based demos, integrations, and technical deep dives. So welcome, Justin and Allison. We're really glad to have you both here today. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say about Rome. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Allison.
Thanks, Caitlin. So today we're going to kind of cover when and whether you should actually do the upgrade. That's a big question we get a lot of the times. Some of the features and use cases that we've seen that we've been very impressed with, answer any questions or dive into what we've seen in our experiences of the different implications on when you upgrade, whether it's N-1, whether you're a couple releases behind, just the different caveats to that. And then how do you communicate that out to your stakeholders to make sure that everyone knows it's coming and you're not just blindsiding them. So Justin and I will be covering those throughout. And like Caitlin said, please feel free to put those questions in the Q&A and we will cover those towards the end. All right, so we're going to start out with a poll. And this is a big question near and dear to Justin and I's heart. Do you all have a ServiceNow roadmap that includes once or twice yearly upgrades? So one of the biggest questions I know Justin asks when he talks to our different customers is road mapping. So I'll let Justin What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the biggest thing that when someone's new to ServiceNow is deciding what to do first, right? If they start with ITSM or sometimes some other apps, it's looking towards the future, implementing new features and functionality. You know, we're here talking about upgrades. So having a roadmap is really important and kind of keeping it up to date and including upgrades in it, right? So if it comes out twice a year, so having that there is really helpful.
Yeah, and I know everywhere I've worked when I was on the customer side, I was the whole team. So we had to be very cognizant of the fact that it was every single 6 months that we were going to have to be thinking about that. So I am very impressed. 68% of
Yeah.
you do have that in your roadmap. So I'm very
Congratulations.
excited for
That's
that fact.
awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. So one of the topics we wanted to touch on first is whether, when, and how to actually move forward with it. So I think the whether to move forward actually depends on, are you compliant? So are you in that N-1? If you're still on New York or Orlando or Paris, you do need to consider moving forward just to stay compliant. So compliance is the first big reason. When is more, in my opinion, around, are you in the middle of a giant project? If so, is there a point where you can kind of pause, upgrade, see how it's going to affect that, and then continue your project so that you don't have to worry about now retesting every single thing you did in the project? If you're not in the middle of a project, it's really, can you pause the development efforts you have going on, whether they're small enhancements or just tiny tweaks here and there? If so, that's a really good place. One of the biggest kind of things to think about is what is coming out in the new release. There are things that you might be thinking about doing that are actually now out of box. So you consider, I have this really cool thing I want to do in CSM. Well, it might be in Paris or it might be in release X. So that might be a good determination of, yeah, now is the time to do it. Maybe we should pause certain efforts to figure that out. And a little bit later, Justin's going to walk through how you can kind of determine what's coming in those releases. And then how to move forward. In my previous experience as a customer, I was the whole team. So we had to be very strategic in how my time was spent on, do we do every single upgrade or do we skip every other upgrade? So how you just start to determine how to move forward. If you have the budget to have a partner help, that's always great. I never had that luxury, so I always got to do it myself. So it was really me planning and getting the correct people engaged to do the upgrade, review the logs, and have testers available. So making sure you have people available to do the testing, especially in those business units, is really key. Justin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually had a spontaneous thought while you were saying that, because you were talking about other things going on, and even outside of ServiceNow, you have to think about what's going on. I remember when I did 2 upgrades as a platform owner, and it was like, we'll do this on Monday because it's a holiday or something, and the service desk owner was like, no, that's the busiest day for help desk tickets. So thinking about different teams, who your primary users are, what they have going on that this might coincide with too, I think is important.
And if you are on a greater release other than Quebec, I think it's really important to review the compiled release notes of what all you'll be getting when you move to Rome, because there are a lot of features that have been added since then. So I think that's another good piece of determining when and how, is what are those different pieces? Because what's nice is ServiceNow doesn't just turn them all on, but they're there for you to turn on even if you own it. Right. So
next poll, we want to know, before we jump into kind of the features and what's coming with Rome, I almost said Quebec, with what's coming with Rome, is what application is most important to you? Are you ITSM? Are you looking at asset management, IT business management, PPM, customer service, security operations, risk? Which is the most critical application for you all that are attending? And that kind of help Allison and I know what we need to emphasize or maybe explore a little more. Allison, do you have a favorite that you like?
So I love the catalog because it touches all of these. But actually IT asset management is super cool and has a lot of cool features. And it ties nicely into all of the different areas. What about you?
Yeah, that ITOM, IT operations manager. Yeah, we left that off. That would be, I'll take ownership of that when I left it off. Thank you, Craig. Yep. Was trying to keep it concise, but ITOM is a big one too.
We'll just lump it into B. I think those play nice together.
Okay, we've got an ITSM crowd, I think. Mostly. We've got some customer service management, but ITSM is where it's at. So that's awesome. And good to know as we move into this, the basically with the features and use cases, we want to kind of run through those. And to start that off, if you don't know already about the documentation site, write this down. It's docs.servicenow.com. And it's you can, Allison will verify, my colleagues will verify. This is on our screens all day long. And we're always using it and referencing it. I'm trying to share my screen while I'm talking. So if you go to docs.servicenow.com, there's on the upper right hand corner, there's release notes and upgrades. So you can see Rome release notes actually came out in July of this year. So here we are in September. We're waiting for Rome to come out, but you can already jump into Rome, take a look at what the features are. We're going to try to run you through what we think are the cool features for the different applications. But Allison just mentioned you might be coming from Orlando or from Paris or from Quebec. So notice that they have release notes specific to those things that'll address what's been deprecated or what plugins have changed that might not get turned on automatically because they replace something. So you'll want to pay attention to the differences. And then they've really organized this well about what's in the upgrade, what are the new features, how do you prepare for it, and then line all that up. There's videos and release note summaries, and the release notes could be just entirely here's all the features, or go down and look by specific products that you're interested in. So we strongly recommend exploring these, seeing having this as a reference for what you might want to look at in the future to add to what you're using already, because as new features come out, you may not be ready for it right away, but eventually that might be something you want to put on your roadmap that hopefully after this, if you don't have one already, you might get one of those built. So Allison, I think I turn it back over to you for the first release topic.
Yeah, so we are going to start with CSM. So some of the new features, and I just want to put a big asterisk next to everything we say. This does not encompass everything that is coming in Rome. We kind of picked the biggest highlights that we thought brought some value that maybe we felt was lacking in previous releases. So there are other items out in the release notes that I would definitely take a look at and not think this is all that there is. So the first one is actually the customer data models. They have actually extended those to add the more complexity of the parent-child, the different partners and contact administrators within those customers to be able to create cases on behalf of their end consumers, whether they're in or outside of their organization. So this just really helps with those data models and helps a better experience for your consumers and your contact admins so that they can have a little bit more flexibility and more visibility into what's going on. It's also helping just get those problems in front of you so that you can quickly identify any issues or resolve any problems, even if they're big or small. But those business models really help those relationships between the organization and users be more visible. The next one that I thought was really cool is the conversation autopilot. I don't know how many of you have ever worked in a case analysis group or a service desk or anything like that, but sometimes people start talking and you're trying to multitask because you're trying to solve their issue while providing positive customer service. And this just really helps you walk through those different topics that they may be covering while you're chatting with them. So you can multitask without feel like you're ignoring them. It really helps you to start having that conversation that leads them down the right path, that uncover what they're actually trying to get to. And as those topics are responded to, that virtual agent captures their input so you can do the deep dive on the back end. So I thought that was really cool. And just being in those shoes before, I know even trying to manage multiple chats at a time, that really would come in handy. And I was like, man, that would have been wonderful 12 years ago whenever I was doing that type of work. The next one that I actually thought, once again, I was a service desk person at heart, was the next best action. So this actually gives decision trees and guidance on what should be your next best action dealing with that caller. So it helps you just set rules and context entities of what's going to happen next. What would be a good next action to provide the best service? So it allows your people to resolve their issues faster. Those decision trees can be built by you or a lead, or as different processes come out, you'll be able to build those decision trees based on your experience. It also helps with their productivity because they're ranked based on the frequency of issues. So if you're constantly having the same issue come in, those decision trees will be front and foremost for them. And just like I said before, you can have that new guidance quickly and readily available as well. So I thought that was really cool. And once again, I wish I would have had those tools back in the day. And I know that, those customer service agents, they deal with a lot, and those things have been very helpful for them. And then within field services management, they've actually added in a crew operations. So within that, they're able to get different resources repeatedly on the same task. So if I have something continually coming up for the same customer, I want them to have a similar experience each time. So I'm able to quickly say, Allison and Justin always get this customer or these types of tasks, because we know that that's their skill set. It also helps them work together on those shifts. So, when there's shift turnover, things get lost or things get kind of forgotten, not communicated. So it also helps with those assignments of tasks during shift turnover. And those crew leaders can actually record their work contributions through mobile apps. That part's nice because those crew leaders have the visibility of what's going on and can help manage those tasks in a more streamlined fashion. So all of that, in and of itself just provides better customer service. And then using that task recommendations, you actually get the best available tasks to fill those different crew members' assignments. So they're getting similar tasks more frequently and in a more streamlined fashion. So for field services, that crew operations just seemed fantastic for me for all of the experiences for your end users.
Hey, Allison, I think I just noticed, I don't know why I missed this when we were reviewing the deck, but the customer data models, that's going to be business to consumer, right?
Yes.
I missed the two there. Yeah, we get that a lot on our CSM use cases. So hopefully that'll be really helpful for people.
Great. All right, now Justin is going to talk about ITBM.
Yeah, ITBM, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the platform. And I included a lot more than just a few top selections. But if you haven't seen the alignment workspace already, version 1 came out with Quebec. Actually, I think it might even be released through the ServiceNow store. But it's basically a way for you to develop a roadmap now. So you can, in the current release, you can put in a project record, a demand record, and kind of assemble a roadmap and see kind of where you're heading. Hint, hint, you might want to do that for ServiceNow, maybe have a roadmap for that. But in version 2, what they're introducing is now we can connect roadmaps. So there can be a hierarchy between them. And you can add more than one type of record. So if you wanted to include projects and demands, or maybe some agile epics, you can have all of those on one roadmap now. So you're not restricted to just one particular record. And if you want something that's not out of box, to put on a roadmap, you can do that as well. That's where the documentation will come in really handy for you. Non-monetary benefits. This is one that when I saw it, I was just like, oh, that's right, that's not there. But basically on a project or demand, you can say, we think this is what's going to be our, increased revenue or decreased cost or whatever. But sometimes there's non-monetary things that might, qualify that project or that demand. And that can be like increased customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction or something like that, something that's not monetary. So now we have a way to track that within ServiceNow. The universal request, I want to talk a little bit about universal requests, just to, if you haven't heard of it, basically this is something new that's come out recently. And it's almost like just a parent ticket type that you can create other record types in the system. So looking at it from kind of an employee service center model, if you just had on a portal, hey, I have a question or I have an issue, it could create a universal request. And then an agent can take that and create an incident, create a service request, create a case within customer service, or create an HR case, something like that. Well, now you can actually take that and create an idea in the ITBM space to move it through that ideation, demand assessment, and project or agile kind of implementation. So that was a nice feature they added. Resource planning. So resource plans, with COVID, this became a hot topic with a lot of our customers. How do we know who's working on what and what our capacity is? And so now there is an ability to reduce a resource plan. So it might be in progress. and you don't need that person as much anymore. So they've made an ability to actually come in and reduce the allocations for that particular plan. And then speaking of resource plans, now for the demand and project, you can restrict the resource plans to not be before or after the start and end dates of the demand or project. So that's just a new feature to kind of make sure someone doesn't plan, hit the wrong button and put a resource plan out in 2022 or 2023 when they meant 2021. User calendar enhancements. These are basically the user looking at their calendar for those resource plans. Now you can have company holidays. So that's a nice little feature they added there, so you can have visibility into when they're not available. Business stakeholder access to Agile, it's pretty straightforward. You got your business stakeholder license that might want to come in and view project status reports and different things going on with a project, or even a demand when they're doing the assessment piece. But now they can see Agile, so they have access to the epics and stories that are going on in the Agile space. Almost there at the end, move project enhancement or improvements. Basically, if you went to move a project, if there were any in progress tasks, it wouldn't let you move it. Well, they fixed that or enhanced it, I guess I should say. So then now if there is some stuff that's already been started, it will let you go ahead and move that project elsewhere to be a sub project or its own project, something like that. And then lastly, domain separation. Who doesn't like domain separation? Ideation or ideas now support domain separation. So we can talk to you more about domain sep. Hopefully it's not that, something you're doing in your environment, but if you are and you're doing ITBM, ideation is important. So yeah, that's pretty much the exciting stuff from IT business management, Allison.
Awesome. All right, so next we're going to get into the IT workflows. So we tried to, like I say, pick the highlights that we saw. This is not all of them. The first one is for ITSM, the digital portfolio management. I don't know how many of you are using your IT services within your CMDB or providing those technical services out to your different end user groups. But what this does is it's actually providing a successful plan for you to design and build your service portfolios out to your end users. So it allows you to actually add automation to that. If you have different pieces that you already know how to automate, you can pre-build those so that they're automatically done, so that when you create those services and offerings underneath, they're all automated instead of you having to manually build piece by piece by piece. And if there's one that doesn't have a child offering, it's going to actually allow you to automatically build a generic one underneath without having to go through and manually do it each time, so you don't have any orphan services. The biggest piece of this is that it's allowing you to align this to the CSDM. If you are not familiar with Common Services Data Model, go read about it. We don't have time to cover it today, but it is ServiceNow's best practice. It's not it's not a tool in the platform. It's not an application or a module. It's just a best practice guidance on how you should model your CMDB and your different services that align to the different technical and application parts. So that's the biggest piece of that, is we're actually able to align our technical and business services in our portfolios so that we can drive better service for our customers. And then the other piece is there is data level domain separation for your outages. I'm shocked that this didn't exist before now, so it's a very exciting enhancement. So you can actually have your outages done by your different domains if you're a domain sep customer. So that's exciting that you can drive it that way instead of having to write the customizations we've had to do in the past. So that's very exciting in my opinion. For the process optimization enhancements, they are actually enhancing some of the areas that do the prediction and recommendation of skills for your agents. So you're better able to predict and recommend which items should be allocated to your different agents if you're doing the skill-based routing. We do that based on just the different queues, what their skill sets are, what their assignment groups are, and what they're commonly working on. So it's able to predict those ahead of time instead of it all being manual. And it's also helping the different KPIs and performance and feedback loops that are inside ServiceNow already. It's adding enhancements to those along with the coaching. What that kind of means is it has better forecasting, and you can now manually adjust those forecasts instead of relying on ServiceNow to do it. So before it was just a 60, 90 day, and now you can go manually adjust it to different time frames if that works for you. Along with that, it helps if you're using the on-call shifts with an integrated on-call application, you can go in and manually adjust those as well. But overall, it's just better visibility into what your agents are doing and to streamline their work. It's the overall workforce optimization piece. And since we forgot ITOM, we didn't forget it here. So I'm very happy about that. So the one cool thing that I was actually kind of surprised to see, but excited to see, was the agent client collector. This is actually a ServiceNow agent that would be installed on your Windows and Linux servers to collect that host data. It's not to replace any of your agents that you use today, like SCCM, but it's a supplement to what discovery is today. It's a different mechanism to discover your devices. It includes just basic inventory, serial numbers, storage devices, and it's also an alternative to your horizontal IP-based discovery for your OS attributes. So it's just a different mechanism that you can use, but it is an agent that is installed, whereas discovery is agentless. So that is one new enhancement that came in Rome. Along with that, we have the health log analytics. This helps you better predict your IT issues before they impact your users. It does collect raw log data, and it's usually done from a third-party monitoring system, and it ties into event management. But whenever it discovers an anomaly in what it had found before, it's going to send that data to event management and allow you to actually go in, proactively identify that and get it resolved, hopefully before any IT users are impacted. So it captures those anomalies, structures those value pairs, and then detects the patterns that it's seeing. And then with CMDB, the CMDB workspace is really just a better single location for your important metrics, activities, your tools, your CMDB admins. It's kind of that one pane of glass for all of that information. Right now, I know they do have those health dashboards. They have some other information, but this is really just to improve your productivity with one location. And really those CI health information is done just a little bit better. There's more knowledge and understanding of your relationships, and identifies any of those flags that might be thrown through the logs and through the different metrics that those CMDB admins use today.
Quick question for you, Allison. And this is coming from Mohit in the chat. He's got another one that I can address separately, but since we're talking about ITOM and agent client collector, is that the now recommended way to do discovery, or is it just another source?
It's just another source. I don't know that they're saying you should replace discovery completely, because discovery does crawl your network, so you can see those relationships, whereas this is more of an agent reporting back. So I think it's supplemental to discovery, but I can definitely follow up to see if there's transitioning to that, but I haven't heard that that's the more recommended. I think it's just supplemental if you don't have like SCCM or some other tool to report back some of those.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know I was catching up on the ham and SAM, which is actually in the next slide. There's actually they're taking advantage of some of the stuff they find in the agent client collector. So those different applications are like, hey, we can use this now to get different metrics. So before I start into asset management, I'll just address, Mohit had another question about universal requests. And the use case there, Mohit, that you put in there about everybody having an email problem, we would use the parent-child relationship on tickets to kind of manage that. So you'd have a parent ticket that is the mother of all email problems. But universal request is more like the user doesn't know what they want, but they want to request help from somebody. So we would have a universal request get submitted, and then that could generate an incident or a request or something else. So that's the concept there for universal requests. But yeah, thank you for the interaction too. So for asset management, we kind of broke this up into software, cloud insights, and hardware asset management, or as I'm fond of saying, HAM. But the SAM, software asset management, oh my gosh, in this release, I know we don't have a lot of ITSM people attending, but ServiceNow outdid themselves this time with the release on software asset. They've completely revamped the user interface for your asset manager. So there's now a workspace where they can get in and basically have this better visibility into dashboards and metrics. And it's not the traditional kind of dashboard that we're all used to seeing, but it's now within a workspace. There's actionable things they can do based on looking at opportunities for reclamation, looking at entitlements, seeing what licenses are used out there. So huge enhancements in the software asset space with the Rome release. And that second one there around playbooks, this is around basically it wasn't hard, but getting entitlements and understanding that so that you can see what you're entitled to versus what's actually out there. They've made it easier now with a playbook. So you can come in, you can say, hey, I need to add some entitlements, and this is the step you need to take. This is the next step and the next step. So it kind of walks you through exactly how to get those entitlements into the system. So all about usability when it comes to software asset management and getting that better visibility, which helps you out with the ROI for that. The Cloud Insights, basically there's some enhancements for budgeting and tagging in Cloud Insights this go around. This is another one where it's a store app, so you could go right there today and get that update. They kind of put the features out there in the bigger releases, but you can actually get to them sooner because they're releasing them via the store. Hardware asset management, there was a couple of things here that I forgot to put on, but one of them is return materials authorization support, or RMA as you might know it. So that's now there. There's some CSDM alignment. So basically they're aligning some of the attributes and class structure to comply with the common service data model. There's a new health tab on the dashboard that basically lets you have visibility into defective, missing, aged assets, stuff like that. Kind of getting in there and managing those hardware assets or stuff that's not been discovered too. And then a big one, I couldn't believe this wasn't there, but you'll be happy to know HAM now has a class for mobile devices. So this is new in Rome, and now they've recognized that everybody has a mobile device and we want to manage those. So now that won't have to be a custom or extended class. It's in there out of the box.
All right, so next, Jess and I are going to tell you our top picks for the Rome release. I'll go first. So mine is actually mobile. I know mobile exists. I know that mobile does a lot of cool stuff, but they've actually enhanced it in a way that it's even easier to build. So I don't know how many of you today have the mobile capabilities. Maybe you just have out of box. Maybe you've done just simple applets or list views, but they've actually made the mobile app builder better and more intuitive. So those of you who have never done it before, you will know it's not terribly intuitive till you get in there and start using it. So they've actually organized their records a little bit better. The structure is more easy to navigate. There's more guides to, get you to the place where you have the correct relationships. It kind of flags you to tell you, hey, don't do this, which is kind of nice because I am not a mobile developer. So trying to figure it out was a learning curve for me. And then it also gives you some more transparency into, what all is tying into that overall app configuration. But I think the two biggest pieces for me, they actually have the universal linking for mobile now. So you're actually able to view more content within your mobile device out of box, and it's a less disruptive experience. If you've used the mobile app, you know that there are certain things that just don't play nice with mobile. So they've made that experience a little bit better. And then the other is actually you can have more pop-ups in mobile. So just like you would on the browser experience, you can have more of those messaging sent across on mobile without a ton of customizations. It's more out of the box now, and it's just a better experience all around.
Nice. I think I mentioned to you, I had a foray into mobile for a HAM demo, a hardware asset management demo, and in the old system. And I stumbled on what fields show up on the list view versus what fields show up when you click on the list view and view the card. And so that's nice to hear that they've improved that, made it more intuitive.
Exactly. What about you?
Yeah, so my top pick, and it surprised me too. I think the show stealer for Rome is software asset management. Props to the people who improved the UI. Before there was a really nice dashboard out of the box, but the workspace experience that we see a lot of the applications migrating to, whether that's agent workspace, CMDB workspace, I think he talked about, but the software asset workspace, they just did a really nice job. And if you guys are a lot of ITSM users out there, take a look at software asset. It's a an application that you can get a lot of return on your investment by reducing your license footprint or right sizing it so that you're only paying for what you need to.
I love Steam. So I'm glad they're continually improving that one.
Yeah.
All right, so our next poll, we are curious how many of you are going to be going through your first upgrade or planning your first upgrade soon. So I'm thinking back to my first upgrade. I was on winter 2010 going to Aspen.
Oh, wow.
And
back in the A's.
It was rough. It's so much easier now than it was back then.
I was telling
your first upgrade.
I was telling Allison before we started, my favorite thing was reviewing all the skips, and I just like the methodical way of going through all those. So
yeah, when they added that was great. We didn't have that back then. So we had a bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Mohit, for the
manual
comment on the background. I worked really
Yeah.
hard on finding that. That's the Rome Coliseum. So thank you for calling that out. Celebrating
All right.
Rome.
We have a mixed bag. Mostly, no, this is not your first upgrade, but we actually have a couple that is their first upgrade. So very cool. Nice mixture there.
Don't be nervous if it's your first
No.
upgrade. Just look at the documentation. Be thoughtful about it. And hey, what a great segue to this topic.
I know. So I was like, oh my God, click forward. So keep going. Yeah, you were doing great.
Yeah, I think the implications of being on that, it's really staying current, right? So the value you're getting from subscribing to a software as a service like ServiceNow is that they're maintaining the software for you, and they're reacting to things in the market. COVID was a big one that happened to us, so they're releasing apps to support vaccination reporting or COVID reporting. So that's the biggest thing is staying on top and getting those new features and new functionality. I don't know, Allison, what do you think? I have some thoughts about losing features too, but
yeah, I think for me, just from my history of I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, is you work really hard to get your instance where it is, and then they build it out of box. And so you go through the internal struggle of, do we adopt the out of the box and align our processes? Do we keep what we built from scratch with our scoped app? It's really kind of weighing of what's coming, what features would we get if we stayed out of box. One is ServiceNow maintains it, they support it, all of those beautiful things. Whereas, you may have had something that you've been working on for 5 years that now you're trying to transition. So I think it's really understanding what all's coming, what's being deprecated, where can I align to out of box and stay current with what ServiceNow is doing.
Yeah, and speaking of deprecation, I think a lot of when I was looking at the release notes, you can see, okay, they've deprecated the old surveys, but they've replaced it with this newer capability. So they're usually not losing anything, but you've got something to replace it with.
Yeah, normally they have a really nice transition plan. So if you're moving from surveys to assessments, they had a nice transition plan of here's how you can transition to that. So it's really just if it's something you custom built with a scoped app versus I'm going from new call to interaction or surveys to assessment.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, they give you some really good tips on how to do that.
Yeah.
And also, like I said earlier, if you're going through, Orlando or New York to Rome, they give you release notes. But I know in at least my experience, and Justin and I talked about this, we've had the same experience. I still upgraded. I may not have checked the log after each one, but I still incrementally upgraded and got to where I needed to be instead of skipping. Just from my experience, I had not issues, but just it was a bit cleaner experience for me.
So just to be clear, if you were on Paris and you wanted to go to Rome, you went Paris, get my letters right, Quebec, and then Rome, right? So you did that same here.
Yeah. Like one night I would upgrade to Quebec, and then the very next night I upgraded to Rome, and then I checked the logs in Rome instead of in Quebec.
Yeah. And what about I think you said earlier at the beginning, the some of the newer features aren't turned on because they do replace. They could be disruptive if they were just an auto upgrade, right?
Exactly. Yes, yeah. That's the other important part about reading the release notes is what do I now get with my licensing that I need to evaluate, turn on in dev, play with, get some requirements, understand what it is before I turn it on in prod. So fortunately, they don't just turn it on.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, this is a good one. So basically, we want to talk about communication next. So to prep that conversation, like, tell us, are your users aware that ServiceNow is upgrading or is able to be upgraded? Like, how's that conversation with your actual users and your team that's supporting ServiceNow? Um, Allison, you
Yeah,
communicated with your platform people in the past, right?
I did. And I've worked for partners before. And the one I always find interesting is when you set up your High portal, people aren't maintaining who that main communication person is. So ServiceNow gives you a lot of warnings before they automatically upgrade you. I would go into High and make sure it's someone that still works at your company. Or, no offense to managers, because this is mostly managers on this call, make your ServiceNow admin or lead or product owner that person, because they're going to be checking those emails a little more regularly to ensure, hey, they're giving us the warning that we have to be compliant by X date or they're going to auto upgrade us. So I would just make sure that that contact person is whoever is responsible for that, because I see that happen a lot as people get auto upgraded and are like, oh no, we got upgraded last night and have no idea. So
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks like no one has responded to this one, but I think we could probably move on, Allison, and talk about
yeah,
why it's important for them to know
yeah,
about the upgrades coming.
absolutely.
So is this me again?
I think it's both of us. Yeah, we're just,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, when I think about this, communicate, right? You should be talking about what's going on with the platform, letting people know what's going to happen. Even when you roll out a new catalog item, right, Allison? Your
Yeah.
favorite thing.
Oh yeah, I love catalog. Yeah, I think it's just making sure IT is such a black hole to most people who aren't in IT. And ServiceNow is for your end users. I mean, it's great for IT people. It helps us work better, faster, all of those things. But without our end users using it and adopting it, it's really losing a lot of its value. So I think making sure that people are in the know. I mean, you can make fun communications, like with your backdrop, with your
Yep.
background, you can, ServiceNow is going to Rome. Here's what to expect, if you're doing something in the portal. And even if they may not notice, just keeping them in the know sometimes makes them feel like IT isn't just its own little island doing whatever it does.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a tip on like how to communicate, I think the backdrop was a good one.
Yeah.
Emails, kind of campaigns, even using your service portal to say, hey, something's coming where people are going to come in. And one just for giggles, I actually did this in the past. I had printed flyers for an upgrade, and we put them on the back of the bathroom stall door, so that if you're in there and you have an audience of one, they know that upgrade's coming by the time they leave the bathroom. So
Say a lot of people do, if it's a big project or even a big upgrade, they'll even do like a happy hour because people do things for booths. So, having a happy hour where it's, hey, come learn about our upgrade or our project. That's always a great way to get people engaged and get them thinking about what's
did you in the past do user acceptance testing for your upgrades?
coming. Yes. Well, we had our power users go in and test key items that we knew they used a lot, especially from the different ways of the portal. Or I worked for a customer that refused to implement a portal. So from our backend catalog or wherever, we had those power users go in and do some testing and give feedback.
You made a great point, and probably a good thing to talk about here if you're talking about communication is, in addition to stakeholders, you probably know off the top of your head, if you're a platform owner, who your biggest power users are, right? They're the ones that have hundreds of tickets under their name or something like that, but you can use that to your advantage, right? So communicate even extra hard with those power users, and they'll go be ambassadors on your behalf, especially if they feel like they're part of the journey and the upgrade and releasing new stuff. So
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So
oh, and
we
I
are
had
now.
I had one other
Oh yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just looking at my notes.
Yeah.
When you're talking about communicating too, we've kind of run through in this webinar talking about new features, new functionality, new capabilities. That's probably not a great thing to do as part of your upgrade, right? So, for the same reason ServiceNow doesn't turn things on automatically, you might want to think about separating, hey, we're going to do the upgrade, and then
Right.
carefully roll out features. So
Yep.
think of those as separate communications. It'll be less confusing for your users. people are trying to understand, what am I supposed to do? What's going on? Try to separate those activities, upgrade versus a feature turn on or feature releases.
Agreed. Yep, absolutely. All right. So I know we've answered some questions as we've gone along. Does anyone else have any other questions or thoughts? I haven't seen any in the chat or the Q&A so far.
Any ITOM questions since we left that off the list earlier in our poll? Well, I think this is the release is scheduled for, is it Friday, Allison? This Friday?
Yes. And that was another part of, I guess I should have talked about during the when, whether, how part is, in my previous roles at customers, I was the whole team. So I never wanted to be the GA person that was finding the bugs. I always waited till like patch 3 or 4. Because then other people got to be the guinea pigs to find those bugs that, were either found during testing or during going live with the upgrade. So I think that's another one to consider is, what's your project team size? Do you want to be on the latest, greatest as soon as it's available? Or are you okay being, on patch 2 or 3, where some of the kinks, some of the bugs have been worked out and other people got to do them instead of you? So I think that's another thing to consider when you're looking at those. And always have a partner do it. I was never fortunate enough to get a partner to do my upgrades, but I wish I would have. So there's a lot of different scenarios where there are a million different ways to do an upgrade. My biggest thing is just make sure you take the time to really dedicate to it, because that's going to affect everyone in your company potentially.
Well, and Allison, you're a managing consultant, so you see the requests coming to our team for upgrades, right? It's like, so we're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And so, if you do leverage a partner, we've done it a couple of times, right? So we have the benefit of, experience and watching for the gotchas. So I had another question.
Yeah, we usually have a list of each release. Here are the big gotchas, here what we know to look for specifically, and depending on patch, we'll know, oh, this has already been resolved, or this we know is part of the next patch, because they'll generally have a known issue that they tell you will be addressed in patch X, so that you don't have to worry about spending too much time unless it's a showstopper.
Yeah, I had a comment. I didn't have a question. I had a comment. I was actually talking to a customer yesterday, Allison, that has already upgraded to Rome. So they did the release preview.
GA,
yeah. But if you do have out there personal development instances, those have been able to be upgraded for a couple weeks now, I believe. I think I did it as soon as it was available, and you can kind of poke around, see what's in there if you're that kind of person. Managers, maybe not so much, but hey.
Yeah. And just a side note, if you are a Manage Now customer of CrossViews, you do get an upgrade based on your tier that's included. Otherwise, you can do it with your Manage Now funds. I'm not a salesperson, so just if you're here and don't know about CrossViews, that is an offering we have that, depending on your tier, and upgrades included. So you do get that as part of what we do. So that's always nice.
I think the quick and simple explanation there is Manage Now is our phone a friend kind of thing. So if you want that extra assurance or white glove support during your upgrade, Manage Now is a great vehicle.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? Surely there's something burning and on your mind.
The next ones are San Diego and Tokyo, because I know people want to know the next letters.
Yep. And now I'm singing the "Where's Carmen San Diego" in my head again. Great. Well, I think we can turn it back over to Caitlin if there's no more questions to wrap us up.
Yep, I think we're all good, and apologies, there's some noise in my background, but thank you, Justin and Allison. This was fantastic. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody on the call did as well. If anybody has an additional question after this, feel free to reach out to any of us here, to your account manager, or you can always email us at letstalk@crossviews.com. Our email address is in that top left corner of the slide there. And with that, we will let you get on with the rest of your day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.